afternoon, and welcome to Hooked on Law with your host, local Salinas attorney John Kloppenstein and his sidekick Peter Hemming. You have questions, John will have answers. Feel free to call in with your questions at 831-393-0645. And now, John Kloppenstein.
Good afternoon. I'm John Kloppenstein.
And I'm Peter Hemming.
Peter, I've had a very interesting week, and I wanted to sort of discuss a few things. Today we don't have a guest, and I apologize to the viewers, but it's just going to be you and me.
How come you never asked me about my week?
Let's ask about your week. How was your week?
Don't ask.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's hear about your week.
Well, my week was very interesting because of the fact that I had a lovely young lady come into my office who apparently her dog, through no negligence on this lady's part, broke its leg. And as a result, this lady is homeless, and she lives in her car. She has some sort of ability to be able to park at a church, but she doesn't really have any money. And so...
Does she have any funds coming in, Social Security or any... retirement, any kind of...
I believe she has very little.
Okay.
Some Social Security, but I believe the bill was something like $1,300. She took the dog to a vet in Salinas, of which she had used this vet before, and they were going to charge her $1,300 to repair the dog's leg, of which she didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
So then I guess the SPCA came into this story in that they took the dog from her and said that somehow or another they think it was animal cruelty. They had a hearing of which she went up unrepresented and went in front of some individuals from the SPCA that apparently decided that they shouldn't give the dog back to her. They've taken the dog. They want $1,800 now instead of the $1,300 and $25 a day.
What $1,800? What for?
Apparently they had some surgery, but the surgery didn't take place until something like 4 or 5 days later, of which this individual was very upset about. But the most important thing is that here you have someone who is basically homeless that doesn't have a lot of money, of which now the SPCA has come in and has, in my opinion, through sort of a unilateral decisions, decided that this woman shouldn't have her dog. And this is a dog that is... what do they call it? A safety dog or something?
Comfort dog?
Not a comfort dog, but a dog that you can go into places with. It's a security dog,
right.
Or there's a
the
name.
kind you mean.
There's a name for it.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, she came to me, and I called a good friend of mine who is a writer for the Weekly, who came over and interviewed her along with myself, and is going to be writing an article next week. It should come out in the next edition of the Weekly regarding this issue.
Yeah. Now, this might be a good lesson here. She couldn't pay the vet, right?
Right.
So what gives the vet the right to hand her dog over to the SPCA? I mean, couldn't the vet have said, pay me when you can? Or, I mean, it's silly, he can, but I mean, basically I'm going to keep your dog until you pay? That's like,
right.
That's like when they keep your car when you can't pay the bill to repair the engine.
Right.
Is he allowed to do that legally?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Here's a little more to the story, is that apparently the dog had done this before. And so she went around and she found this vet in Salinas, and they were able to get her some sort of grant. And so what happened is that she got a grant that paid for the initial injury to the dog, and then I guess shortly thereafter, maybe a month or two, the same sort of thing happened again, and so they thought there was a pattern that was going on, and I guess the vet must have thought that there was possible animal cruelty, and so that's how the SPCA got involved in this. And then they did try to see if she could get another grant, but since they had already given her the grant, she couldn't get a grant from anybody, and so that she couldn't pay for the surgery on the dog.
Does she appear to you to be a responsible person?
Very.
It's not like she's like Alzheimer'd out or anything like that.
No,
Like
very,
she can handle her affairs.
Very responsible,
Okay.
and I was impressed because of the fact that she had worked and she went and got herself some sort of license as a security guard. She was working at the fairgrounds. She was doing various events at Pebble Beach and around, and she made some money, and apparently she had an old car. She ended up trading that car in, and then she bought or fixed up another car. And so what she does is she sleeps at night at St. John's Church, and she's some sort of star program of which allows her to be able to do that. But, you know, in essence, she's a homeless person of which these dogs are, you know, very important to her. She has another dog,
Right.
And they're very important to her.
Well, your
and,
dogs are your kids, let's face it.
Right.
Yeah. That's
right.
Yeah.
And so by taking, it's like taking your kid away.
Yeah.
And then, you know, through the fact that she doesn't have any money, she can't pay for the surgery on the dog, plus she can't pay for the daily storage of the dog or taking care of the dog, $25 a day.
Yeah,
I mean, that just adds up. And so I mean, we're hoping that this article is going to attract people to donate money so that she can get her dog back.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what specifically are you going to do for her?
Well, I'm going to, if she's being charged with animal cruelty, which is Penal Code Section 517.1 or something like that, which talks about abandonment, basically. And I didn't think that what the situation really applied to her, because she didn't abandon the dog.
Yeah.
You know, if you
sounds more like kidnapping to me.
By the SPCA.
Yeah.
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 I agree.
Yeah.
No, it really is.
Yeah.
And
there's a law about that, isn't there? There's the thing called dog napping, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about dog napping.
Well, I did hear that one time many years ago. You know.
Well, you know, the SPCA is I guess an organization that's going to protect you know, animals and pets and things. And so when they get a hold of an animal like a dog or a cat that's, you know, injured, and then they have the fix the dog through their own surgeons and whatever, then the way the statute's written is that in order to get the dog back or cat back or horse back or whatever, you got to pay. You got to pay for that, whatever the bill is. And if you can't pay, you don't get your dog back.
Yeah.
So
I imagine every single day you don't get your animal back, they're charging you.
they're charging her $25 a day.
So it's just going to get build up, and eventually she's not going to be able to pay anything.
Right.
Eventually,
It's like impounding your car.
Yeah.
You know, the police impound your car and, you know, some crime, and then, you know, there's this impound fee, and your car's, you know, worth $3,000 or $4,000. The impound fee is going to be more than the $3,000 or $4,000, and so what ends up happening is that they just take your car.
Right.
You know, and so that is what happened. Now, what I, you know, can do if she is charged by the DA's office, you know, I'm going to represent her pro bono. I'm not going to charge her, of course.
Okay.
And, you know, I will try to do my best to argue that I don't think she committed any crime.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that happened. And then another thing that happened is, and this happens not very regularly, but sometimes I get clients who are really unreasonable. In
what way?
Unreasonable in they don't want to listen to my representation, and they want to be their own attorney.
Okay.
And I have
too many lawyer shows.
Yeah. I have a situation where, and it really a woman who was being they filed a domestic violence restraining order against her, and she filed one against her ex-boyfriend, and they live next to each other. And so she came to me at the 11th hour, and I had something going on at 9 o'clock in the morning on that day that ended up spilling over to 1:30, and I was ordered by the judge to come back to Monterey. I went up to Watsonville and let the judge know, and the judge basically said, we're going to go forward and force this woman to represent herself. She lost, and then, of course, they issued this protective restraining order against her. Now, she wanted to demand certain things of which I questioned, but being kind of the good guy I am, I went ahead and I sent this letter to the opposing counsel, of which I put the wrong address on it. Actually, there was a suite number that I forgot to put on it. Got the letter back, and then I get a call from this client. And this client then starts talking about some other things. And then the attorney calls me back, of which I then tell the attorney about these things that the client was telling me. And then all of a sudden the client goes, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you, that was between you and me.
Yeah.
I said, well, you never told me that. And, started going on, oh, this is my life, you ruined my life, all these things of which, twisting words and things, and so what ends up happening on these situations is that I just refund back their money. I don't need the headache. I don't need any of this kind of thing. I've got a thriving practice of which I don't need this these headaches.
Yeah. Have you ever turned a client down simply because you kind of said to yourself, this lady is just going to be impossible to work with?
Yes.
Has that ever happened? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have received a number of calls from individuals that think they have a case. And then I talk to them on the phone. I say, well, what's your, what kind of case? What are the facts of the case? And, they go on and on and on about, something that happened 15 years ago or something that just, isn't that's going to lead to a legal kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had any problems like in court dealing with some clients that are just not cooperative, or they're making, they're just getting too mad, and they're just like in Perry Mason, they're jumping up saying no, or something like that? Do you ever had to deal with that kind of stuff?
All the time.
Really?
All the time, Peter. Yeah. In the criminal defense business, a lot of individuals that are being charged with very serious crimes have mental illness as part of their makeup. And as you know, back Ronald Reagan took away a lot of the mental institutions and put a lot of these people on the street.
Right.
And being on the street, not having any money, being mentally ill, not having access to medications, then what ends up happening is they will self-medicate with methamphetamine, heroin, marijuana, whatever they can get their hands on in order to sort of get whatever's in their head to stop ticking. And so what happens is that leads to money. You got, if you're going to buy methamphetamine, heroin, or whatever, it costs money. And so as a result, what are you going to do? You're going to break into somebody's car, you're going to break into somebody's house, you're going to steal some things and then try to sell it or whatever. And of course these guys are not rocket science criminals, and they're gonna they get caught. They get caught, and then what happens is then they go through the system, and the system gives them initially a slap on the wrist, and then they come back out and they haven't received any treatment or anything like that, and then they're back at it. And they, I had clients that would get out of jail and then would be back 2 months later in violation of their probation, violating, something because of the fact that they're self-medicating themselves. And it all has to do with mental illness, and that, the criminal justice system has tried to address that to some degree. There's courts that, like in Monterey right now, there's what they call the DUI court, where if you have multiple DUIs, then you would be eligible to go to this court and receive treatment through a team with a judge who sort of monitors things, and you get a probation officer, you get a mental health, behavioral health, you get these evaluations, and then sometimes you have to go and do a residential program or something. But I mean, this is sort of the beginning, but it's just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. It's I don't think it's really addressing the real need that individuals really need in this now in a day criminal justice system.
Yeah. Now, how has the opiate crisis been with you? Have you noticed? Of course, that's a very big thing now. It seems so many people are being addicted to opioids and like that. They gave me opioids for my cancer, for the pain and like that. So I still have some of the pills. I understand I get $50 a piece for them. But don't laugh. But have you noticed a lot of that here in Monterey County?
Yes, I have.
Is that they call it an epidemic? Have you noticed that?
I have. I really have. And you know what it is? It's an epidemic with the younger generation. For whatever reason, they're able to get the Oxycontin, and these pills, and it's synthetic heroin.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is then the doctor stops the prescription. They're addicted to the Oxycontin, and then they go out into the street and end up buying street heroin and end up, injecting street heroin. Now, I knew of a young man who was excellent football player. Apparently went to one of our local high schools, got a scholarship to a very good school to play football, and while he was there, he was injecting himself with heroin and playing football, of which he ended up getting caught. They did a search or something of his dorm room, and then he came back, and he ended up being a client of mine because of the fact that he ended up getting caught with possession of heroin, which is a felony.
Pretty serious. Yeah.
Well, very, very serious.
You're caught the first time. What's the penalty usually for that?
Well, it's a felony.
Right.
Usually it's felony probation.
Okay.
And it can result in some time in the county jail. I would think somewhere up to maybe 180 days. But for every day you're in there, you get a day's credit. So really it ends up being 90 days. And if you have some money, then you could get the ankle bracelet in lieu of actually being in the jail. And so you just wear the ankle bracelet for 90 days. And I guess you have a probation officer, you have a formal probation officer that you need to report to. They may test you. There may be drug testing involved. But other than that, that's really all that's involved the first time.
Now, have you noticed this seems to be more typical in Southern California, what they call affluenza? In other words, the kid who gets busted from heroin in, say, Pebble Beach, as opposed to be how the kid in, say, East Salinas is treated. Have you noticed any difference in that? Do you see any equality here? Or what's been your experience?
What happened, Peter, is that the penal code in California is a determinate type penal code. A lot of states have an undeterminate, meaning you've heard things like 1 to 5 or 5 to 10 years, something like that. And so what they tried to do is they tried to make it fair from the top of Oregon all the way down to the border of Mexico to make it even. So what that means is that there is a low term, and usually the low term might be 16 months, the middle term is 2 years, and the upper term is 3 years. Okay? Yeah. And then there are rules of court that would apply to whether or not it should be the upper term or it should be the lower term. And then if the judge just rules it's the middle term, the judge doesn't need to make any sort of findings. So a lot of times it ends up being the middle term, because then the judge doesn't have to go through all the rules of court to determine if it's the lower term or the upper term. Aggravated or mitigating circumstances is what they call this. So as a result, we need to take a break right now.
I told you noticed.
Yeah, wow. Time's flying. We're going to take a break, Peter.
All right.
We'll be right back with more of Hooked on Law after these brief messages. I used to dread having to clean my bathtub at home. Then I found Joy's one-stop janitorial service. They came in and made my bathtub look like new. My back thanked them for that. I found out that Joy's one-stop janitorial service does a lot more. For instance, they do carpet cleaning, stripping and waxing floors, window cleaning, screen rebuilding, pressure washing, gutter cleaning, and so much more. Just like me, I'm sure that you probably have some kind of janitorial needs for your home or business. Why not do what I did and give Joy's one-stop janitorial service a call at 831-236-1720. They serve the Monterey Bay area and beyond. Joy's one-stop janitorial service. 831-236-1720. Please tell them that KMBY sent you.
KMBY.
I used to dread having to clean my bathtub at home. Then I found Joy's one-stop janitorial service. They came in and made my bathtub look like new. My back thanked them for that. I found out that Joy's one-stop janitorial service does a lot more. For instance, they do carpet cleaning, stripping and waxing floors, window cleaning, screen rebuilding, pressure washing, gutter cleaning, and so much more. Just like me, I'm sure that you probably have some kind of janitorial needs for your home or business. Why not do what I did and give Joy's one-stop janitorial service a call at 831-236-1720. They serve the Monterey Bay area and beyond. Joy's one-stop janitorial service. 831-236-1720. Please tell them that KMBY sent you.
KMBY.
Hi, Jim Boston here for the Monterey Chamber of Commerce. If you are looking for a great place to dine in Monterey, like the old Fisherman's Grotto on Fisherman's Wharf, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for a great place to play in Monterey, like Cannery Row, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for a great place to stay in Monterey, like the Portola Plaza or the Monterey Tides on the beach next door to Seaside, check out MontereyEatPlayAndStay.com. If you are looking for cars, car parts, body shops, car clubs, etc., check out MontereyCarChannel.com. It's quite interesting and fun. For more great information about Monterey, check out MontereyCalifornia.us. That's MontereyCalifornia.us. All of this and more brought to you by the Monterey Chamber of Commerce. Not a member? Join today. Call 394-6501. Welcome back to more of Hooked on Law. And here is your host, John Kloppenstein.
Peter, and we're back.
Hello, John.
Oh, hi, Peter.
Well, nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Where'd you go? Peter, let's talk a little bit about the criminal justice overall, and maybe give the viewers an overall picture of maybe what would happen if you were arrested on a criminal case versus a civil case.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. But can we stick, just from my own education and theirs, just to Monterey County, because we live here.
Sure.
Rather than just an overall view of the justice system, what do they have to expect here when they're here in Monterey County?
Well, I think what they should expect here would be wherever there would be arrested or wherever they're going to file some sort of civil, the judges take an oath to follow the law, and generally they follow the law, so there isn't going to be any difference really between one judge here in Monterey County versus a judge up in Butte County or someplace like that. They should be fairly consistent, but a lot of people ask me this question about the difference between a criminal and a civil, and here what I think is really a big issue is that if you're arrested on a criminal case and you don't have any money, you're entitled to a public defender. You're entitled to an attorney to represent you.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
Is it, they always say if you can't afford one. What if you can't afford? In other words, they might look at me and say, what's your bank account, whatever. Said, oh, you can afford an attorney. We're not going to give you one. Is it if you ask for an attorney, they got to give you one no matter how rich you are or how poor you are or what? How does that work?
No, there's actually a form that you fill out that it's a financial form.
Uh-huh.
And then it's reviewed by a judge to determine your financial ability. And if there is what the judge believes a financial ability, then the judge will decline a public defender and will tell this individual defendant that you need to come back in 2 weeks with an attorney. And so the way it goes is that you show up in Monterey County. It would be in Salinas, which is where the criminal courts are handled, in Department 11, which is in the basement if it's a misdemeanor. So what happens is then you go to Department 11 and you sit there, and then prior to the judge coming out, you fill out a form if you want a public defender. And then all those forms are given to the judge, and then the judge goes through those on the record and decides whether or not to appoint a public defender for this individual or not. And so if you're not appointed, then what would happen is you have to come back with an attorney or represent yourself. Now, in a civil, which is different, is that if you were to file, let's say, for example, you hire somebody to do some work at your house, and that person does shoddy work and causes you to fall down the stairs, you get hurt, and you want to sue this individual and their company for negligence. Okay? Well, first of all, if it's over $25,000 in damages, you have to pay the court $435 filing fee just to start. If it's under, you got to pay $375 out of your own pocket just to start a lawsuit. You're not entitled to a lawyer. So if you go, you have to hire a lawyer to, or you have to do it yourself. Now, there is small claims, but, a lot of these things nowadays with the rising costs of medical care and all that kind of stuff, you're out of, $10,000, $9,900. So you're into, basically superior court. And, a lot of these, they don't know what they're doing. And they come into court and they try to represent themselves. And, I've been in the court, and I feel sorry for them because of the fact that, to hire a lawyer is expensive.
What small claims court? I forget. How much can you sue somebody in small
up
claims?
to $9,999.
Okay.
And then what happens is the jurisdiction goes from $10,000 up to $24,999. That's called a limited. That's a limited jurisdiction. And then you have unlimited, which is $25,000 to infinity. So those are, and so you have a filing fee, you have to pay for a lawyer, and generally, you know, just to start with me, it's going to be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 just to start, to get me to you know, prepare the complaint and file it and serve it, and then represent the person in court, and sometimes this can take up to 2 years. To go through all the various discovery and everything before there's any sort of monetary settlements. And I think what the criminal justice and civil justice, that there should be some grant that would allow, you know, indigent kind of individuals the right to have a civil attorney, and have a panel of civil attorneys that are able to do it for low cost, and then have this grant pay this civil attorney to represent, you know, this individual in a civil lawsuit, so that the same sort of thing like's going on in the criminal is going on in the civil. And I'm sure that, you know, the judges would really appreciate this, because of the fact that the judges end up having, even though they can't really give them legal advice, end up, you know, sometimes giving them legal advice just to help them through this process, because I think it just sort of gums up the works.
But there's no such thing as that right now, is what you're saying?
No, there isn't, and there should be. There really should be. You know, I'm a big advocate of that, and I think that that's important. Now, you're in Department 11, and let's say, for example, you were able to hire a lawyer like myself, and so if it's a misdemeanor, I go in for you, and I appear 977, meaning that you don't have to actually be there. I enter a not guilty plea, and they have what they call a district attorney, deputy district attorney down there in 11, that's supposed to be sort of an early disposition to give what they think is the best deal. They have a list. We look on the list, and if we think it's a great deal, then, you know, sometimes what will happen is you'll see the individual pleads no contest or guilty, and it's all done. But generally what I do is I send it up to a court, which we call the Alpha Court, which is up on the first floor, which is 7, 8, or 9. And those are judges, and then they have their own specific deputy DAs, and then we appear. So you would appear with me. I go into the chambers with the deputy DA, and we discuss your case. And so let's say, for example, I think that there's no crime that's been committed, and so I tell the judge I don't think there's a crime, and here's the reasons. And the deputy DA says, I think it's a crime, here are the reasons. And then the judge is supposed to sort of see what he or she can do to cut through the the mustard, so to speak. And if they can't, then we set it for trial.
Okay.
And then what happens is you come back, and you put on your spiffy John Kloppenstein attorney at law shirt, and we have a trial. And you testify, and you tell them your side of the story, and I ask you the questions, and then we argue to a jury, or sometimes to a judge, and hopefully get some sort of not guilty or some reduced sort of crime, and and so that's kind of the process in that area. Where with the civil, you file your lawsuit, they have 30 days to answer. A lot of times it's insurance companies. They call you on the phone and say, we want an extension of time. You give them an extension of time. Then they send you interrogatories, requests, special interrogatories, requests for production of documents, all this stuff. Yeah. And we got to answer them within 30 days. And then they want to take your deposition. And then they take your deposition. And then at some point or another, maybe we get it to mediation in about 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about, I mentioned this to you before, there's a thing called Nolo Press. They make a series of books, and Nolo, in case anybody wants to look this up. It's basically do-it-yourself law.
Okay.
A few bookstores will sometimes have that. Good or bad? Don't recommend. What are we speaking of?
I don't know anything about those books. I've
yeah.
never looked at those books.
Okay.
I think that representing yourself, you have a fool for a client.
Right.
So I think that if you can afford an attorney, or you can have the public defender represent you, and they're excellent. I mean, they're there every day. That's what they do. I'm a former public defender, 2 different public defender offices. I worked, and you know, a lot of times they get a bad rap, and the reason being is that they have a lot of cases, and it's difficult to handle all those cases, respond, and whatever. And there's certain clients that want their handheld.
Yeah.
You know, and if that's the case, and you want to have individual, you know, hand holding, and you want to feel that you can call somebody like myself, you know, I answer the phone. I'm there. I'm answering the phone.
Yeah.
And you can get me directly. I've got 2 lines. I've got my office line. I have my cell phone on my card. So, you know, you can get me even at home when I'm watching Law and Order.
This guy does work hard. I've been to his office.
Yeah. So, you know, and but you can get me directly.
Right.
You know, where there's a sort of a line, you get a secretary, you know, public defender, they have somebody there that's answering the phone, and then they have, you know, sort of a line of, you know, then they say, okay, they'll send you to the person, and it goes right directly to their voicemail. You leave a message, and you leave another message, and you leave another message, and they, you know, they don't get back to you because they've got a lot of cases, and it's not their fault, so to speak. But, you know, that's the way it is, you know, but, you know, they're a good office, and you get some fine attorneys, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we were talking about this morning, about what to talk about today. What is the standard of justice in Monterey County? Like I said, I'm talking about judges, lawyers, your district attorney, your ADA, so on like this. Because we are in a small county, there's only around 400,000 people that actually live here.
Right.
You know, some might say, well, the really best guys, they're going to go to L.A. or they're going to go to San Francisco because that's where the money is. So why should they waste their time here? But what has been your experience in dealing with Monterey County justice and the people who enforce it?
Well, I've had good experiences, and I've had bad experiences.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's
Well,
like,
you probably get that anywhere, I suppose.
yeah, sure. I mean, it's like anywhere, and like I said earlier, is the way the penal code is written. It's to create equity in courts that are way up next to Oregon, to courts that are down next to Mexico. So all the way up and down the state of California, the sentence should be fairly equitable in terms of what a judge would lay down. I told you that there's a low term, there's a middle term, there's an upper term. Now, where it gets a little dicey is in the enhancements. What has happened is that there are a lot of enhancements, and we'll get back to that. I believe that we have another break, Peter.
Another break. Okay.
Things are going so
I
fast.
have 2 cigarettes.
Okay. All right. Let's take a break.
All right.
We'll be right back with more of Hooked on Law after these brief messages. Hi, Jim Watson here for the Sand City Chamber of Commerce. Sand City is well known for its large art community. Check out sandcityartworld.com. Sand City is also known for its industrial businesses like Disaster Cleanup, Floor Store USA, Cypress Cabinets, A&R Plumbing, and many more. Yes, Sand City has 2 shopping centers with Costco, Office Depot, Target, Home Goods, not to mention the 2 new burger places, Five Guys and Habit Burger Grill. Plus my favorite place, Saturdays, McDonald's. Love that quarter pounder. Check out SandCityShopping.com. Sand City has a giant development in the works, including lots of apartments and a hotel or two. For more great information about Sand City, check out SandCityCalifornia.com. That's SandCityCalifornia.com. All of this and more brought to you by the Sand City Chamber of Commerce. Not a member? Join today. Call 394-6501. Hi, Jim Vossen here for the Seaside Chamber of Commerce. If you're looking for a great place to eat in Seaside, like the Googie Grill on Del Monte near Canyon Del Rey, or the Wakatobi Japanese Grill at 1130 Fremont Boulevard, check out SeasideEatAndStay.com. If you're looking for a great place to stay in Seaside, like the Econo Lodge Bay Breeze Inn at 2049 Fremont Boulevard, or the Big Embassy Suites at the corner of Canyon Del Rey and Del Monte, check out SeasideEatAndStay.com. If you're looking for a new or used car, check out SeasideAutoDealers.com, where you'll find BMW of Monterey, Victory Toyota, Lexus Monterey Peninsula, and more. Check out SeasideAutoDealers.com. For more great information about Seaside, check out SeasideCalifornia.us. That's SeasideCalifornia.us. All of this and more brought to you by the Seaside Chamber of Commerce. Not a member? Join today. Call 394-6501. Hi, Jim Vossen here for the Delray Oaks Chamber of Commerce. If you have never been to Delray Oaks before, it is well worth coming by. About 20 years ago, a young gentleman took on the task of counting all the trees in Delray Oaks. He's still counting them today. There's a great and famous restaurant in Delray Oaks called Tarpey's. And of course, they have a Starbucks and a Jack in the Box and a large Safeway. There is also a special place where people come from miles around to look at a large frog population. If you need your spirits lifted, there is the beautiful Church of the Oaks. Check out their website, churchoftheoaks.com. And if you're in the neighborhood, stop by and say hi to my good friend, Reverend Dr. Robert Helen. To find out more about Delray Oaks, check out DelrayOaksCalifornia.com. That's DelrayOaksCalifornia.com. Brought to you by the Delray Oaks Chamber of Commerce. To join the chamber, call 394-6501. Welcome back to more of Hooked on Law. And here is your host, John Kloppenstein.
And we're back. And we're talking about what you have to expect when you go into the criminal justice system or the court system of Monterey County. So,
right.
Go ahead.
I think where I was at was we were talking about the equality of up Oregon to the Mexico,
right,
and throughout the state of California, is that we have what we call a determinative sentencing. And what I was getting at was that where it gets a little dicey is with the enhancements. What has happened is that the legislature has added a lot of enhancements that enhance the sentence. And so, for example, if you were to drive drunk and somebody gets hurt while you're driving, first of all, that's a felony, could be a misdemeanor felony depending on the seriousness of the injuries. But if someone is injured, there is an enhancement for someone getting injured, which I believe could be a 2, 3, 4 additional to the general sentence. So let's say, for example, you have a sentence that's 16, 2, and 3, and you get the upper term, and then you get the upper term on the enhancement. Instead of 3 years, you're looking at 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Okay, or instead of 3 years, depending on, they could be double enhancements that end up adding. So you have 4 years on one, you got to have another 10 years on another, and so the next thing you know, you've got 3, 7, and you got 17 years. So what's going on here is that everything is sort of equal in that respect, but it's really up to the DA's offices to allege these enhancements. And I think that's sort of where things are different in the state, depending on the aggressiveness of and what a DA wants to emphasize. So let's say, for example, I'm the DA here in Monterey County and I want to emphasize drunk driving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to add every enhancement that I can add to enhance that sentence. so that person, is going to get hit pretty hard with a a pretty big maybe prison sentence. Now we had this this young kid that apparently he was driving over to Salinas and ended up killing some individuals that apparently, and apparently right now he was in some sort of rehab, and now he's going to go in front of the court, and there's a number of, because of the fact that somebody died, there's a number of enhancements that enhance that to something that could be very serious, or it could be almost maybe second-degree murder. Because there's what we call a Watson admonition that tells, so if you pick up a DUI, your first DUI, the judge is going to read what is called a Watson admonition that's going to basically say this, that drinking and driving is a serious thing, and that if you drink and drive and you kill somebody when you're drinking or driving, then you could be looking at second-degree murder.
It's not considered accidental death?
No. And what's interesting is that, and this is a little bit technical, so stay with me on this, is that in order for there to be murder, you have to have malice. Okay, malice, you've heard of this, malice of forethought. Okay, there has to be, what was a ruling, and it was a ruling in this case, this Watson case, of which I met him in a prison down in Southern California. He asked me to do some appellate work for him on this very issue. It's called reverse malice, meaning that if you know you're drunk, you've been convicted of a DUI, and you know that you get behind that wheel, then by getting behind that wheel, even though you're drunk and you can't form any sort of intent because of the alcohol, that in itself is reckless. And so that recklessness becomes what we call malice. Okay. It's called reverse malice. And so that is what is going on with these serious kinds of things. Now, the DA, they get grants from the state of California and other things which make it their sort of priority in terms of where they're going. They get a grant for DUIs. They get a grant for welfare fraud. They get a grant for, a lot of different things, which if they are prosecuting, then they continue that grant. So that becomes sort of an important thing. And so each DA's office across the state may have a different priority in terms of what they're, what they think is important. I mean, they're all important, but, some are more important than others.
Now, when I first came here, about 30 years ago, I worked for a guy, and one of our employees was stealing. She stole about $2,500 cash. She also took the company credit card, and we called the district, called the police. Nothing happened as far as I know. I finally, after a few months, called the district attorney. I don't know if it was Dean Flippo, who might have been the attorney at that time. I told him what had happened. I said, "Are you doing anything about it?" Strange as it sounds, he basically said to me, "Look, I've got drug dealers, I got gang problems here." He said, "That's white-collar crime. That's really low on my schedule right now. As far as I know, nothing ever happened to this lady."
Well, that just meets my point. Is that the priorities of a particular DA's office, like you said, and there was a kind of at the time, if you had a white collar or you had an issue that had to do with theft, there was this particular. I don't know if it was a DA or they had a particular kind of thing that you could report that theft. But theft is not as high a priority as maybe DUIs and other things that are going on. Now, there is one thing that I'd like to talk to you about, Peter, and it was what you told me about your experience when you apparently got a traffic ticket. So why don't you tell the audience your experience, and then I'll respond.
Well, we were talking about judges, and back in when I was probably 25, I was working for a company part time as a courier, and they told me to get this letter to some guy, and I said, they said, you got to get it really, really super fast. I said, I don't want to get a ticket. He said, don't worry about it. We'll pay for it. So anyway, I got delivered to the guy. I got busted for a ticket. I went to the...
What were you doing? Were you speeding?
Speeding ticket.
Okay.
And went to the judge. It was traffic court. And tried to explain what happened with the company. And he said, work for a better company. He just slapped me with the... I never did get... they never did pay for the ticket. But what I noticed was with this guy was... And again, this is traffic court.
Right.
It looked to me like he was just trying to get people out as quick as possible. He wasn't really listening to explanations.
Okay.
Now, do you find this atypical? I mean, he is a judge. I guess judges can do a lot of things. So, should I have expected more, or is this atypical, or what do you think?
I think what you should have done is you should have hired a lawyer.
Yeah.
In our traffic court, we have a commissioner. Okay, we have a new commissioner.
Okay.
That's probably been doing it for maybe 6 months. I don't know. Maybe let's give the benefit of the doubt a year, but doesn't have a lot of experience and came from a situation where she was doing self-help. She was the self-help director, and then she ended up getting promoted by the judges to commissioner. Now, a commissioner is not an actual judge. Okay, so the commissioner will come out and say, look, I'm not an actual judge. If you want to judge, then you tell me, and I'll recuse myself, and then we'll get a judge here. Generally, what I do is, if you were to hire me, I go in without you, and I enter a not guilty plea, and usually with a time waiver, and I set it for a trial. Okay. Now, at one point, we had the district attorney's office that would come in, and on Fridays at 1:30, there would be a district attorney that would come in, and we'd be able to negotiate these particular cases and come to some conclusion, and so that would reduce the overall caseload for the commissioner. The commissioner was there and whatever, and we'd put it on the record. And so let's say, for example, you're going 100 miles an hour in a 70 mile an hour zone. Okay, now you're 30 miles an hour over. If you're 25 miles an hour over, you get traffic school.
Okay.
So that's a big difference because of the fact that if you get traffic school, then you go to the traffic school, you can then get it off your record, and so you don't have that big hit with the insurance, etc.
Yeah.
Now we don't have the district attorney. You go in front of this commissioner, and it's a deal where the CHP officer or some officer comes up and just recites, wrote what happened, and then, I cross-examine the officer for a while, and then the commissioner generally rules against me and my client, and then hits you hard with a fine. But at least you get an opportunity to, with a trained attorney, to at least cross-examine this officer, try to trip him up, try to do what you can. And I know that we had Chris Kane on one of our shows on how to beat a traffic ticket, and what he's doing is that he was setting everything with a no-time waiver, jamming the courts up, forcing judges to come in, confusing officers so they wouldn't show up, and getting a lot of cases dismissed. And so, there are sort of ways around all this, and I feel sorry for you, Peter. I think that you probably should have.
It's back in the 70s, so
you should have got you should have gotten a better deal.
That's like I said, live and learn, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So let me ask you this, just out of curiosity. I've been to 3 courthouses in Monterey County: Salinas, of course, Monterey, and I've been over here in Marina. How many courthouses do we have?
We have 3.
Just the 3?
Yeah,
That's it.
We have a Marina is the traffic court, and then there is the issue regarding child support. We have a commissioner that is in, I think, 21, who you go in front of if you're contesting child support. So if you're going through a divorce and your ex wants $2,000 and you say, look, I only can pay $1,000, you go in front of this commissioner, and then she puts on a screen all your financial information, and then they hit a button, and then it comes out as to what you should pay. Mm-hmm. Now that's 21. 20 is the traffic commissioner in Marina.
Okay.
Salinas is strictly criminal, and Salinas has, I think, 11 or 12 courts, and then Monterey is your civil. So if you have a civil case, you're going to be in Monterey up Aguajito Road. If you're criminal, you're going to be over there on Church Street, and if you have a traffic, you're going to be on Del Monte, which is where Marina is.
Okay. Now, jury duty.
Yeah.
I've been snagged a couple of times, never had to serve. If people do go on jury duty, what do they have to expect in terms of time constraints?
Well, that's a good question. That depends.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get stuck on a murder case. You could get a misdemeanor, which might be a day or two. So it all depends.
Yeah.
Generally, what happens is that you go over to Salinas, and up on the second floor there's a jury assembly room, of which then we have a jury commissioner who assembles the people and says, okay, now 50 of you are going to go to Department 3. And so then they all show up. And then what happens is they have for cause. So let's say, for example, you have a prepaid vacation. You're going to go to Hawaii, and you've got it prepaid, and you're going to leave in 2 weeks. And so that's one reason why you could get out of jury duty. Another one might be where you have some sort of medical appointments, or you're going to have surgery, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, not to interrupt, but of course, we know things like OJ and like that. They're literally for months. People can't expect that up here, can they? Usually, a murder trial, it might be a couple of weeks, and that is it, or can it be a lot? Have you noticed it's a lot longer up here, or what have you noticed?
Well, murder, you have more peremptory challenges. Mm-hmm. So I think you have something like 10 or 11 if it's a misdemeanor, somewhere in that vicinity, but I believe you have something like maybe 25 or 30 peremptory challenges to just kick off whomever you want. I don't like the fact that you're wearing glasses, Peter, or I don't like the fact that you got that Kloppenstein shirt on. You know what I mean? So I can just get rid of you for whatever reason. Like yeah. Okay. So there's a lot more jurors that need to be involved in this kind of thing, and I was going to start a murder trial, not a murder trial, but a serious trial, life trial, of which we had a questionnaire. And we were going to do a questionnaire, and a panel of jurors were going to come in, and then they were going to fill out this questionnaire, and then it was going to go on and on and on. So I mean, you could expect maybe a 2-month trial, or a 2-day trial.
Yeah. Have you seen 2-month trials up here?
No, I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's rare.
Okay.
It's rare.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause when they got me once, they said a murder trial. They said look at 2 weeks. Another trial was like 2 days or something. They said, depending on
Well, they want to go
where they selected you or not.
They want to go further than lesser. So they want to, so the judge will ask the attorneys, how long do you think this is going to go? And it's 5 days. So then the judge will say, well, let's tell them it's 10 days. and then they'll be happy because they'll leave in 5 days.
Yeah.
So, that's what's going on there. We have 1 minute to go.
1 minute.
Well, Peter, it's been great. I'm not sure if this is going to be our last show or not, but I know that this is going to be your last show.
Okay.
And I want to say to the viewers and to you personally, I appreciate your help here. You've been keeping this going along and asking some very interesting questions, and you'll be extremely missed. But
thanks,
the show must go on.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed the program and will tell a friend. Please join us next Saturday at noon for more of Hooked on Law. For archives of this program, please go to www.kmbytv.com. Thank you.